So I'll now recognize myself for 5 minutes. And I guess this question go to Mr. Chase. Tell me about the authority to operate. There have been some questions about this in the past. The Inspector General found that the authorities to operate were a material weakness in fiscal year 2016. The IG reported that 18 major systems still did not have current authorities to operate in place. What is the current state of those ATOs?
So all the ATOs...
If you can move that microphone a little closer, thank you.
I apologize, sir. So all the ATOs are currently compliant at ATO.
Can you put some meat on the bones, define that for us?
So in FY16, again, our strategy was to identify and understand all the systems. It was identified that quite a few of them were out of compliance. So we took on 2 major initiatives at OPM. One was a sprint in February 16 to look at all the systems to include the HVAs to ensure the best pathway forward to get them compliant. The next phase of that was marketing within OPM and the agency heads and the acting director at the time to ensure that everybody in the agency knew the importance to get everybody into compliance.
Would the ATO, you said all of them, would that include the PIPs?
That is correct, sir.
It would. Okay.
That was not reflected in the FY16 FSMA report and has been recently.
Everything within the NBIB, is that, do those all have current valid ATOs?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Let me switch over here, if we could, to Ms. McGettigan, or maybe Mr. Phelan. You might be the right person. Actually, let me ask you, Mr. Phelan. What is the current state of the ability to look at the social media? We've been talking in this committee over the last couple of years, actually, with OPM about during background check investigations, looking at social media. What are you doing or not doing in that process?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. 2 points to make on that. Number one, in April of 2016, the security executive agent set out a directive that would allow an investigation to use social media, publicly available electronic information, in order to inform an investigation. We at NBIB or its predecessor, the Federal Investigative Service, have been using on a targeted basis social media inquiries to help resolve issues when they come up during an investigation. We are in the middle of a short pilot to understand how we can incorporate it into a formal, into a more consistent use during an investigation. In other words, how do we collect the information, get it disambiguated, and make sure it is accurate and of any value, and then provide it to an investigator who is in the field conducting an investigation to help enhance that.
Can you define short pilot? Because I think we've been talking about this for a couple of years. This doesn't seem to be very short.
So a number of pilots have been conducted by a number of agencies to look at the value of social media, and they most have reached a similar conclusion. There can be valuable information in collecting social media.
Can you just hold on here? This is what drives people crazy about government. You had to conduct a study to find out if looking at social media would be valuable, and the conclusion is it might be, yes. Come on. Every single time there's a terrorist attack, what's the very first thing the investigative body does? They go and look at their social media. And more often than not, they say, oh my goodness, if somebody had just looked at this, why in the world do we need, we're still doing a pilot? Let me answer the question for you. Yes, looking at publicly available social media should be part of the background check. It's a joke to think that you're not looking at social media. And the idea that we even have to think about this, by its very definition, it is social. It is open. It's there. Facebook. You can go, come on. Instagram, Twitter. Every single time we go and do an interview for somebody, we go check their social media. Why do you have to do another pilot?
The pilot was not to determine whether or not there's any value in social media. The pilot that we are currently running is how do we incorporate it into a standard background investigative process And the largest pole in this tent here is not, can we collect the information? It is not, is there going to be valuable information in there? It becomes, how does it get incorporated in a manner that is cost effective to our customer base? And because the collection is the easy part, the analysis of it becomes harder, and the more data that's out there, the more difficult the analysis becomes. I believe that this is a relevant data source. We believe it is a relevant data source. We're going to continue to exploit it. This pilot was a very short one to determine how we can build it into our current investigative process, and as we move down the road, how it will become more of a mainstay for this investigative process.
Have you considered implementing a policy to require the disclosure of online usernames or social media identities as part of the clearance process?
We have not at this point.
Why not?
That would be a decision to be made by the security executive agent to ask for that information.
Here's my personal take on this, and then we'll go to Mr. Conley. The United States of America, the people of the United States of America, are about to entrust somebody with a security clearance that allows that individual to look at and understand information that the rest of the public doesn't get to look at, right? That is the very nature of a security clearance. We're doing this, we're giving this person special privileges because we trust them. I would think it would be reasonable that in return for that, you don't have to apply or try to get a job with a security clearance. There's nobody that forces you to do that. It's optional. But you would think in return for that, they would say, yes, here's my Instagram account, and I would go so far to say, here's my password. If you want to go look at my private Instagram, that is a reasonable thing to look at when you're trying to go back and do a background check. Some of these background checks are so thorough. You're looking at bank records, you're looking at education, you're interviewing neighbors, you're talking and trying to figure out as much as you can about this information, a very costly, expensive, laborious process. And yet we're so bashful, we won't even say, we're going to be looking at your Instagram, is that okay? You know, and if it's not, then maybe we shouldn't be giving them a security clearance. That's my take on it. It's very frustrating. This takes so long because every time we have a problem, what's the very first thing the FBI and other law enforcement want to do? They want to dive into their social media. That's the best way for them to figure out what has been going on, what is the attitude, who are they communicating with. And if we're going to give a security clearance, it seems reasonable. I'm past my